The gun was already at her temple when Emma realized she'd made the worst mistake of her life. 3 masked men surrounded the car. Rain hammered the windows. Her hands shook as she pulled 7-year-old Noah closer, his small body trembling against hers. The driver slumped forward, blood spreading across his white shirt. Outside, Chicago's warehouse district stretched empty and dark. No witnesses. No help coming. "Get out," the man with the gun said. "Give us the kid." Emma's throat closed. She couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Only one thought cut through the panic: not this child. Not on my watch. She bit down on the gunman's hand. Hard. Tasted copper. He screamed and jerked back. She shoved Noah to the floor and covered him with her body as glass exploded above them. Gunshots. Shouting. Then silence. When she opened her eyes, all 3 attackers were on the ground. A 4th man stood in the rain, gun still raised. Tall. Broad shoulders. Dark hair plastered to his face. He lowered the weapon and his eyes met hers through the shattered window. "Are you hurt?" Emma couldn't answer. Her ears rang. Her heart hammered so hard she thought it might burst through her ribs. The man opened the door. Reached for Noah. "I need to get him somewhere safe. Now." 48 hours earlier, Emma had been sitting on the floor of her studio apartment in South Chicago, counting $18 in crumpled bills. The eviction notice on her door gave her 6 days. 6 days to find $900 for rent. 6 days before she'd be sleeping in her car. The apartment was freezing. The landlord had shut off the heat 2 weeks ago. Emma wore 3 layers and still shivered. Her phone buzzed. Another text from the nursing home. Her grandmother's medication bill was overdue. $400. Due yesterday. Emma stared at the empty refrigerator. 1 can of soup. Half a loaf of bread. That was it. She'd lost her job at the diner 3 months ago when it closed down. Since then, 72 applications sent out. Not one callback. Her stomach growled but she ignored it. She'd gotten good at that. The knock came just after midnight. Emma froze. Nobody knocked at midnight in this neighborhood. Through the peephole, she saw a man in an expensive black coat. Rain dripped from his hair. In his arms, a small boy wrapped in a blanket. The child's face was flushed red. His eyes were closed. His lips looked gray. Every instinct screamed danger. Strange man. Middle of the night. Storm. But the boy wasn't moving. Emma's hand was on the lock before she could stop herself. She'd worked as a nurse's aide for 2 years before the diner job. She knew what a sick child looked like. She opened the door. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe to this channel for more like this. The man was taller than she expected. Water pooled on her floor as he stepped inside. Up close, she could see the boy's chest rising and falling too fast. Shallow breaths. Burning skin. High fever. Maybe higher than 103. "Please," the man said. His voice was rough. Desperate. "My car broke down 4 blocks from here. My phone's dead. I saw your light. He needs help." Emma pointed to the couch. "Put him there." She ran to the bathroom. Grabbed her 1 clean towel and a bowl of cold water. When she came back, the man had laid the boy down. The child was shaking. His teeth chattered. Emma knelt beside the couch and pressed her hand to his forehead. Burning. Dangerously hot. She'd seen this before at the care home. Fevers that spiked fast in kids. If it didn't come down soon, he could have seizures. "How long has he been like this?" she asked. 2 hours. Maybe less. He was fine at dinner. Then he just collapsed. Emma didn't ask about dinner. Didn't ask where they'd been. Didn't ask why this man in his $1,000 coat was knocking on doors in the worst part of Chicago. She focused on the boy. She went to her medicine cabinet. Found the children's fever reducer she'd bought 6 months ago with her last paycheck. She'd been saving it for emergencies in the building. Now she was using it on a stranger's son. Emma returned with the medicine and a glass of water. She lifted the boy's head gently. "Hey, sweetheart. I need you to take this. It'll help." The child's eyes fluttered open. Big brown eyes. Glassy with fever. He looked at her like he was trying to focus but couldn't quite manage it. "Mom?" His voice was barely a whisper. Emma's chest tightened. She glanced at the man. His face had gone completely blank. Like someone had carved it from stone. "I'm not your mom," Emma said softly. "But I'm going to help you feel better. Can you swallow this for me?" The boy nodded. She gave him the medicine one small sip at a time. He swallowed slowly. Obediently. When he finished, Emma soaked the towel in cold water and placed it on his forehead. She wiped his neck. His wrists. Anywhere she could bring the heat down. The man watched without speaking. His eyes never left his son. Emma worked methodically. She'd done this dozens of times at the care home. Check the temperature. Change the compress. Monitor the breathing. Wait. 30 minutes passed. Then 40. The boy's breathing slowed. The red flush faded from his cheeks. Emma checked his forehead again. Cooler. Not normal yet, but better. "He's through the worst of it," Emma said. "But he needs to rest. And you should watch him for the next few hours." The boy's hand reached out and grabbed Emma's fingers. Small. Warm. Trusting. "You're nice," he whispered. "Like my mom." Then his eyes closed and he fell asleep. Emma sat perfectly still. The boy's hand was still wrapped around hers. She didn't know where his mother was. Didn't know what had happened. But something about the way he said it made her throat ache. She looked up and found the man staring at her. Not at his son. At her. And in those dark eyes, she saw something she hadn't expected. Grief. Raw and barely contained. He turned away fast. Walked to the window and stared out at the rain. His shoulders were rigid. One hand clenched at his side. Emma carefully pulled her hand free from the boy's grip. She stood. Her knees were stiff from kneeling so long. "He'll need food when he wakes up. And you're soaked. You'll get sick if you stay in those wet clothes." The man looked back at her. Like he'd forgotten he was drenched from head to toe. Water still dripped from his black hair onto her floor. Emma went to the closet and pulled out her one clean towel. "I don't have men's clothes. But you can at least dry off." He took the towel. Nodded once. "Thank you." Emma walked into the kitchen and opened the cabinet. 1 can of soup. Half a loaf of bread. A packet of instant noodles. She'd been planning to stretch it through tomorrow. Maybe the day after. But now there was a sick child who needed to eat. And a man who'd walked 4 blocks in a storm carrying his son. She opened the soup. Poured it into a pot. Turned on the stove. At least the gas still worked. She sliced the bread into thin pieces and arranged them on a plate. When she brought the food to the living room, the man had dried his hair and was sitting in the chair beside the couch. His eyes were locked on his son. Emma set the bowl and plate on the coffee table. "Eat. You need your strength." He looked at the soup. Then at her. "What about you? I already ate, Emma said. Before you got here. It was a lie. She hadn't eaten since yesterday morning. Her stomach was eating itself. But she couldn't take the last of the food in front of a sick child and his father. The man studied her for a long moment. Those dark eyes seemed to see right through her. But he didn't call her out. He just picked up the spoon and started eating. Emma sat on the floor beside the couch. The boy was sleeping peacefully now. His breathing was steady. His forehead was almost normal temperature. You live here alone? The man asked. Yes. His gaze moved around the apartment. Emma knew what he was seeing. The eviction notice taped to the door. The empty cabinet still hanging open. The broken heater even though it was 30 degrees outside. The water stains on the ceiling. The furniture that was barely holding together. You have nothing, he said. Not a question. Just a statement. Emma wasn't ashamed anymore. She'd moved past shame months ago. That's right. I have nothing. But what I do have, you can use. Something shifted in his expression. The hard, cold look softened. Replaced by something that looked almost like respect. Why? He asked. You don't know who I am. You don't know what I do. I could be dangerous. Why did you open the door? Emma looked at the boy. At his small hand still clutching the edge of the blanket. Because he needed help. That's all that matters. They sat in silence. Outside, the rain kept falling. Thunder rumbled in the distance. But inside the small apartment, something felt different. Warmer. Even with the broken heater. His name is Noah, the man said suddenly. My son. Noah, Emma repeated. She smiled a little. That's a good name. I'm Julian. Emma. Emma Foster. Julian nodded. Then he asked, You said you already ate. But I don't think that's true. Emma's face went hot. She looked away. The cabinet is empty, Julian continued quietly. The eviction notice is on your door. You gave us your last food. Didn't you? Emma didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Julian set down the spoon. Why would you do that? Because a child needs to eat more than I do. Julian leaned back in the chair. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, My wife died 2 years ago. Car accident. Noah was in the back seat. He saw everything. Emma's breath caught. Since then, he hasn't spoken to anyone except me. Won't let anyone touch him. We've tried 7 different nannies. 7 therapists. Nothing worked. He just shuts down. But tonight, he let you help him. He called you nice. He compared you to his mother. That's the first time he's mentioned her without crying in 2 years. Emma didn't know what to say. She looked at Noah's sleeping face. So peaceful now. So innocent. I don't know how you did it, Julian said. But thank you. The first light of morning came through the thin curtains. Emma woke up in the chair beside the couch. Her neck hurt. Her back ached. But when she checked Noah's forehead, it was cool. Completely cool. The fever was gone. Noah stirred. His eyes opened. Clear this time. Alert. He looked around the unfamiliar room. Then at Emma. Then at his father sleeping in the other chair. Dad, Noah said. His voice was still hoarse. Julian's eyes snapped open. He moved to the couch fast. Dropped to his knees. Pressed his hand to Noah's forehead. When he felt the normal temperature, his whole body seemed to sag with relief. He pulled Noah into his arms and held him tight. Like he was afraid the boy might disappear. You're okay, Julian whispered. "You're okay." Emma stood quietly and went to the kitchen. She splashed cold water on her face. Tried to wake up fully. Her stomach cramped with hunger, but she pushed it down. About 20 minutes later, she heard an engine outside. Not a normal car. Something heavier. She looked out the window and stopped breathing. A black SUV sat in front of her building. The kind with bulletproof windows and reinforced doors. 2 men in dark suits stood on either side. A third man got out of the driver's seat. He was built like a tank. His eyes scanned the street like he was looking for threats. Julian appeared beside her. He'd used her phone at some point during the night. "My people are here. We have to go." Emma nodded. She'd known this was coming. They were strangers who'd crossed paths in a storm. Now the storm was over. They'd go back to their world. She'd go back to hers. Back to $18 and an eviction notice. But Noah wouldn't leave. The boy ran to Emma and wrapped his arms around her legs. His face pressed into her knees. "I don't want to go. I want to stay with Emma." Emma knelt down until she was at his eye level. "You have to go home with your dad, Noah. You need to rest and get completely better." "But I like you," Noah said. His brown eyes were shining. "You smell like cookies. Like Mom used to smell." Emma's throat closed up. She pulled Noah into a hug and held him tight. This child she'd met less than 12 hours ago had somehow carved out a space in her chest. "I like you too," Emma whispered. "So much." Julian stepped forward and gently lifted Noah out of Emma's arms. "Come on, buddy. We have to go." But before he walked out the door, Julian reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out a thick stack of cash and a business card. He pressed them into Emma's hand. "This is $5,000, Julian said. His voice was firm. "Final. And my number. If you need anything, call me." Emma stared at the money. Then at him. "I can't take this. You saved my son," Julian cut her off. "You gave us shelter. Food. Help. When you had nothing. This isn't charity. This is a debt." Emma wanted to refuse. Her pride screamed at her to give it back. To say she didn't help people for money. But then she thought about her grandmother. About the $400 medication bill. About the $900 rent. About the eviction notice. She swallowed her pride and nodded. "Thank you." Julian didn't say anything else. He carried Noah down the stairs. The tank-sized man opened the SUV door. Before Noah climbed inside, he turned back and waved. "Bye, Emma. I'll miss you." Emma waved back. Her vision blurred. Then the door closed. The engine started. The SUV drove away and disappeared around the corner. Emma stood at the window until there was nothing left to see except puddles from last night's rain. The apartment felt emptier than ever. Colder. Quieter. She looked down at the business card in her hand. No name. No company. Just a phone number printed in black ink. Who was Julian? And why did she feel like last night wasn't the end of their story? That morning, Emma went to see her landlord. He was a heavy man with a gray beard and a permanent scowl. But when Emma counted out $900 in cash on his desk, the scowl changed. He ripped up the eviction notice right in front of her. Emma left his office feeling like she could breathe for the first time in months. She went straight to the pharmacy and bought her grandmother's medication. $400. Then she stopped at the grocery store. Real food. Chicken. Vegetables. Fruit. Milk. Eggs. Fresh bread. Things she hadn't been able to afford in months. That afternoon, Emma visited her grandmother at the nursing home. Margaret Foster sat in her wheelchair by the window. Her hair was white as snow. Her face was lined with wrinkles. But her eyes were still sharp and bright. When she saw Emma, she smiled. "There's my girl," Margaret said. She held out her hand. Emma took it and knelt beside the wheelchair. "Grandma, I need to tell you something." She told her everything. About the knock at midnight. About Noah's fever. About the last can of soup. About the $5,000 and the blank business card. Margaret listened without interrupting. When Emma finished, her grandmother was quiet for a long time. Then she squeezed Emma's hand. "You did the right thing," Margaret said slowly. "You helped a child who needed help. It doesn't matter who his father is. That boy was innocent. And you saved him. But Grandma, I don't know who Julian is. He could be dangerous." Margaret smiled. The gentle smile of someone who'd lived 81 years. "Life isn't black and white, sweetheart. There are people who do bad things and still love their families. There are people who look respectable and have rotten hearts. What matters is what you saw in that man's eyes when he held his son." "What did you see?" Emma thought back. Remembered the moment Julian pulled Noah into his arms after the fever broke. Remembered the raw grief in his eyes when Noah called for his mother. Remembered the gentle way he whispered, "You're okay." "I saw a father who loves his child," Emma said quietly. "Then you already have your answer," Margaret said. "Kindness always comes back, sweetheart. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But it comes back." Emma stayed with her grandmother until evening. Then she went home. The apartment had food in the fridge now. Money in her pocket. But it still felt empty. She sat on the couch where Noah had slept and pulled out the business card. Just a string of numbers. Nothing else. Emma took out her phone and typed into the search bar, "Julian Chicago black SUV." The results came up fast. But there weren't many clear photos. Mostly grainy long-distance shots. Vague headlines. And one name that appeared over and over. Julian Wade. Emma clicked on the first article. Her hand started shaking. Julian Wade. Also known as the Wolf. Head of the Wade family. One of the 3 most powerful organized crime families in Chicago. Suspected in over 24 murders. Never convicted because witnesses disappeared before trial. She scrolled down. Another article showed Julian in a black suit standing outside a courthouse. His face was blank. Cold. Nothing like the desperate father from last night. Then she found an older article. About his wife. Caroline Wade. Shot and killed 2 years ago in a drive-by shooting. The 7-year-old son had been in the car. Witnessed everything. The shooter was never found. Rumors said it was a rival family. Emma dropped her phone. Her fingers were shaking. The man from last night. The man who'd eaten her last can of soup. The man who'd left $5,000 and said, "Call me if you need anything." He was the most dangerous crime boss in Chicago. And she'd opened her door to him. A week crawled by. Emma couldn't stop thinking about what she'd read. Every night she dreamed about Julian's blank expression in those courthouse photos. About the articles with their terrifying headlines. About the words, organized crime and suspected murders. She hid the business card at the bottom of a drawer. Like not seeing it could make it less real. But life didn't give her much time to be afraid. $5,000 sounded like a lot. But after paying rent, buying her grandmother's medication, buying food, and covering the overdue electric bill, Emma had less than $800 left. And she still didn't have a job. Every day she left the apartment early. Went from one diner to another. One store to the next. One care home to another hospital. 72 applications became 91. Still not one callback. On Friday afternoon, her phone rang. Unknown number. Emma almost didn't answer. Probably a spam call. But something made her pick up. Miss Foster. A man's voice. Deep. Commanding. Not Julian. Yes? Mr. Wade would like to see you. There's a job opportunity he thinks you'd be interested in. Emma's heart kicked hard against her ribs. She wanted to say no. Wanted to hang up immediately. She knew who Julian was now. She knew how dangerous he was. Getting involved with him could destroy her life. But then she looked around her apartment. The refrigerator was almost empty again. Next month's rent was still a question mark. Her grandmother still needed medication. And Emma was still unemployed. Where? She heard herself ask. A car will pick you up in 1 hour. Exactly 1 hour later, a black car stopped in front of her building. Not the bulletproof SUV from before. But still expensive enough that the whole block stared. Emma got in. The tank-sized man from before was driving. He didn't speak. Just drove through South Chicago, across the bridge, and into downtown. Emma watched the world change through the window. From broken-down buildings to glass skyscrapers. 2 completely different worlds. The car stopped in front of a restaurant. High-end Italian place with a gold sign. The windows were dark even though it was dinner time. The door was locked. But when the driver led Emma up the steps, a waiter opened it immediately. Mr. Wade is waiting for you. Emma stepped inside. The restaurant was huge and expensive. White tablecloths. Candles. Paintings on the walls. But it was completely empty. Except for one person sitting at a table by the window. Julian Wade. He looked nothing like the drenched desperate father from the storm. Julian sat in a dark gray suit that probably cost more than Emma's entire apartment. His black hair was perfectly styled. His face was sharp and cold. Everything about him screamed power and danger. Emma's knees trembled but she walked to the table anyway. Julian stood when she approached. Miss Foster. Thank you for coming. You wanted to see me, Emma said. She tried to keep her voice steady. About a job? Julian gestured for her to sit. A waiter appeared out of nowhere. Poured water for both of them. Then vanished. Julian studied her for a long moment. Those dark eyes seemed to weigh everything about her. Noah, he said finally. He needs someone to take care of him. Emma waited. Since his mother died, Noah hasn't spoken to anyone except me. Won't let anyone touch him. Won't smile. We've tried 8 nannies. 8 therapists. All of them quit or got fired because they couldn't reach him. Julian paused. For the first time, Emma saw exhaustion in his eyes. But that night in your apartment, Noah talked. He held your hand. He said you reminded him of his mother. That was the first time he mentioned her without breaking down in 2 years. Emma didn't know what to say. I want you to take care of Noah, Julian said plainly. Be his private caregiver. Live with us. Emma sat frozen. A private nanny. Living with them. She'd imagined a dozen possibilities on the drive here. But not this. The salary is $10,000 a month, Julian continued. His tone was calm. Matter of fact. Room and board included. Your own bedroom in my house. Full health insurance for you and your grandmother. I did some research. Margaret Foster is at Mercy Nursing Home. I can move her to a private facility with specialists available 24/7. $10,000 a month. Insurance for her grandmother. A better facility. The numbers spun through Emma's head. It was more than 4 times what she'd made at the diner. It was an answer to every problem crushing her. But she wasn't stupid. "I know who you are," Emma said. Her voice shook but she forced it steady. "I looked you up. Julian Wade. The Wolf. Head of the Wade crime family." Julian didn't look surprised. He took a sip of wine. Set the glass down. Met her gaze without flinching. "You're smart. I expected that. And you still want me to work for you? After I know what you've done?" "The articles say a lot of things," Julian replied. "Some true. Some false. Some exaggerated." He paused. His eyes locked on hers. "But I won't lie to you. I am what they say. I've done things most people would call crimes. I live in a world you were never supposed to know existed." Emma felt ice run through her veins. At least he was honest. "But I'm also a father," Julian continued. His voice softened for the first time. "A father with a 7-year-old son who lost his mother. A child who hasn't smiled or spoken or let anyone close for 2 years. The job I'm offering has nothing to do with my business. You'll only take care of Noah. That's all." Emma said nothing. But she was listening. 8 nannies, Julian said. 8 people in 2 years. The first one quit after 4 days because Noah wouldn't eat. Wouldn't talk. Just sat by the window waiting for his mother to come back. The second lasted 3 weeks. Then she resigned because she couldn't handle listening to Noah cry every night calling for his mom. The third, fourth, fifth. They were all afraid. Afraid of me. Afraid of what they'd heard about my family. They looked at Noah and saw the son of a criminal. Not a child in pain. He stopped. And Emma saw something in his eyes that wasn't cold or dangerous. It was grief. The same raw grief she'd seen that stormy night. "And then that night in your apartment, I saw something I haven't seen in 2 years," Julian went on. "Noah held your hand. Noah spoke to you. The next morning when we got home, he asked me when he'd see Emma again. That was the first time he asked about another person since his mother died." His voice went rough. "You're the only person who's made him smile, Miss Foster. The only one." Emma remembered Noah's small hand wrapped around hers. Remembered his soft voice saying "You're nice like my mom." Remembered those brown eyes looking at her with complete trust. "I'm not asking you to trust me," Julian said. "I'm not asking you to like me. I'm only asking you to help my son. Give him a chance to be happy again." Emma looked down at her hands. Hands that had helped dozens of people at the care home. Hands that a 7-year-old had called nice. "I need time to think," she said finally. Julian nodded. "Didn't push. You have 2 days. After that, whatever you decide, I'll respect it." He reached into his jacket and placed an envelope on the table. "My address and contact information. If you agree, call me." Emma picked up the envelope and stood. She started to walk away. Then she turned back. "Why me? You have money. You can hire the best specialists in the country. Why an unemployed diner waitress from South Chicago?" Julian looked at her. And for the first time, she saw the faintest hint of a smile. Not cold. Real. "Because that night you had $18 and 1 can of soup. And you still opened the door to a stranger. You still gave us everything you had." He paused. "Money can buy experts, Miss Foster. It can't buy kindness like that." That night Emma couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the cracked ceiling. Her mind kept spinning between 2 images. Julian Wade in his perfect suit. Cold eyes. Crime boss. And the drenched desperate father holding his feverish son. Eyes red with grief. Voice breaking as he whispered, "You're okay." The two images kept blurring together until she couldn't separate them. The next morning Emma went to see her grandmother. Margaret was sitting by the window reading an old book. When she saw Emma walk in with worry all over her face, she set the book down and opened her arms. "What is it, sweetheart?" Emma pulled up a chair and told her everything. About the meeting at the restaurant. About the $10,000 offer. About the insurance and the private facility. And about the truth. That Julian Wade was a crime boss. A man all of Chicago feared. Margaret listened without interrupting. When Emma finished, her grandmother was quiet for a long time. Then she took Emma's hand in her wrinkled fingers. "I've lived 81 years in this world," Margaret said slowly. "I've seen all kinds of people. Men who go to church every Sunday and beat their wives at home. People called criminals who've saved more lives than doctors. The world isn't simple, Emma. People aren't just good or bad." "But Grandma," he admitted it. "He said he's done terrible things. And he also said he's a father. A man desperate enough to come to a girl with $18 because she's the only person his son has smiled at in 2 years." Margaret squeezed Emma's hand. "That little boy needs you. That's what matters. Not the money. Not the insurance. A 7-year-old child waiting for you to help him be happy again. Can you really walk away from that?" Emma bowed her head. Tears ran down her face. She knew the answer. She'd known it since Noah wrapped his arms around her legs and said, "I don't want to go." "Aren't you afraid?" Emma whispered. "Afraid I'll be in danger living in a crime boss's house?" Margaret smiled gently. "Of course I'm afraid. But I believe in you. You're the strongest person I know. You'll figure out how to protect yourself." She paused. Her eyes twinkled. "And who knows? Maybe you'll even change him." Emma laughed through her tears. She hugged her grandmother tight. That afternoon Emma picked up her phone and called the number on the business card. Julian answered on the second ring. "Miss Foster." "I agree," Emma said. "When do I start?" 2 days later a black car pulled up in front of Emma's building for the last time. She'd packed everything she owned into one suitcase and a backpack. Not much. Her whole life fit into 2 bags. She'd ended her lease. Returned the keys. Said goodbye to the apartment that had been home for 4 years. The tank-sized driver was waiting by the car. He nodded when Emma came down the steps. Took her suitcase. Opened the door. Then they drove. They left South Chicago. Crossed the river. Cut through downtown. Headed north. The buildings got nicer. The streets got wider. Trees lined both sides. Tall iron fences appeared. Estates hidden behind walls and security cameras. After almost an hour, the car stopped in front of a huge black gate. The driver pressed a button and the gate swung open. They drove down a long white gravel path lined with old oak trees. Then Emma saw it. The Wade estate. A massive 3-story house that looked like something from a movie. White stone. Columns. Balconies. Tall windows that caught the afternoon sun. Around it stretched a huge lawn. A fountain. Rose gardens. Beautiful. Cold. Powerful. Emma noticed men in dark suits everywhere. At the gate. At the corners of the property. On the second-floor balcony. Their eyes followed the car. Security cameras were mounted on every angle. This wasn't a home. It was a fortress. The car stopped at the front entrance. The driver got out and opened Emma's door. Led her inside. The entrance hall was enormous. High ceiling. Huge crystal chandelier. 2 staircases curving up to the second floor. Everything was marble and dark wood and gold. Expensive. Perfect. Empty. Before you start, there are rules, the driver said. His voice was deep. Final. You work for Noah. Not for Mr. Wade. Your job is to take care of the boy. Nothing else. Don't ask questions you shouldn't ask. Don't go where you're not allowed. The basement. Mr. Wade's office in the East Wing. The guest house out back. All off limits. If you see something, you didn't see it. If you hear something, you didn't hear it. Understood? Emma's throat went dry. Understood. The driver led her up to the second floor. Down a long hallway lined with paintings and fresh flowers. He stopped at a door and pushed it open. Your room. Emma stepped inside and froze. The bedroom was twice the size of her old apartment. A huge bed with white silk sheets. A wooden dresser. A vanity with a mirror. A window overlooking the rose garden. A private bathroom with a marble tub. This was hers. An unemployed waitress from South Chicago. Living in a mansion. Before she could process it, footsteps pounded down the hallway. The door flew open. Emma. Noah launched himself at her. Wrapped his arms around her waist. Looked up with those brown eyes shining. His whole face was one giant smile. Dad said you're staying with me. Is it true? Are you going to be here forever? Emma knelt down. Met his eyes. And suddenly all her fear and doubt melted away. This was why she was here. Not the money. Not the insurance. This child. This child who looked at her like she was his whole world. I'm going to be here with you, Emma said. She pulled Noah into a hug. I promise. And in that moment her heart broke wide open. The first 2 weeks felt like a dream Emma never expected. Every morning she woke up in the huge bedroom. Watched sunlight pour through the windows. Needed a few seconds to remember where she was. No more freezing apartment. No more broken heater. No more empty refrigerator. But what made her happiest wasn't the luxury. It was Noah's laughter. Every day they were together. Breakfast in the big dining room. Playing in the rose garden. Reading in the library. Drawing in the playroom filled with toys Noah had never touched. The boy followed Emma everywhere. Held her hand when they walked. Stayed close whenever he could. Julian was usually gone. Left early. Came home late. But Emma noticed how he'd stop in the doorway of the playroom. Stand there watching his son from a distance. He never came inside. Never spoke. Just watched Noah laugh with Emma. And in those dark eyes there was something soft she couldn't name. On the 10th night everything changed. Emma was asleep when a scream woke her. She shot out of bed and ran down the hall. Threw open Noah's door. The boy was sitting up in bed. Soaked in sweat. Both hands clutching his head. Crying so hard his whole body shook. Noah. Emma rushed to his side and pulled him into her arms. I'm here. You're safe. Noah shook against her. Cried like a child who'd been holding everything inside for too long. Emma held him tighter. Rubbed his back. Whispered comfort. It took almost 15 minutes before the crying faded to hiccups. I dreamed about Mom, Noah whispered. His voice was raw. I dreamed she got shot. Emma's chest tightened. She knew Caroline Wade had been killed 2 years ago. But she hadn't known Noah had seen it happen. I was there, Noah continued. His eyes were squeezed shut. Tears still running. Mom was holding my hand. We were going to school. Then a car came. There was a loud noise. Mom fell down. There was so much blood. Mom told me to run but I couldn't. I was too scared. Emma felt tears slide down her own face. She held Noah tighter. Like she could protect him from every terrible memory. I don't want Dad to get shot too, Noah whispered. I don't want to lose Dad like I lost Mom. I don't want to lose you either. I'm not going anywhere, Emma said. Her voice shook. I'm here with you. I promise. She held Noah for the rest of the night. Let him fall asleep in her arms. When morning finally came, Emma looked down at his peaceful face and understood. This child hadn't just lost his mother. He'd lost his sense of safety. His ability to trust. His childhood. And somehow he'd chosen to trust Emma. In the days after, Noah started opening up more. He talked about his mother. About bedtime stories. About ice cream trips. About the smell of her perfume. He talked about the nightmares. About the fear that came when he heard loud noises. About being too scared to go outside because bad people might come. Emma listened to everything. Never interrupted. Never judged. Just held him and said what he needed to hear. That he was loved. That he was safe. That Emma would always be there. One afternoon Noah was drawing in the playroom. Emma sat beside him reading. When he finished, he held up the picture. This is my family. Emma looked at the drawing. 3 people holding hands. A tall man with dark hair. A small boy. And a woman with brown hair. This is Dad, Noah said. He pointed to the first figure. This is me. And this is Emma. Emma's throat closed. What about your mom? Mom is in heaven, Noah said. His voice was calm. Matter of fact. Like he'd accepted it. She's watching me from up there. But she can't come back. So I have Emma now. Emma didn't know what to say. She pulled Noah into her arms. Tears ran down her face. What she didn't know was that Julian was standing in the doorway. He'd been there for several minutes. Watching his son draw. Listening to him say my family. And when he saw the picture. Saw the 3 people holding hands. Saw the woman Noah had drawn as family. Those dark controlled eyes went blurry. Julian Wade. The most feared crime boss in Chicago. Stood in the shadows and cried. If this story moved you, don't just scroll past. Hit that like button right now. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe so you never miss another story that'll make you feel something real. Because stories like this? They remind us that kindness still matters. That second chances exist. That love can grow in the most unexpected places. Don't let this moment pass. Tap that button. Share this. Be part of something bigger. Do it now.